Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion show. I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I am here with Justin Wood, who is the former state representative for House District 26, the district I'm also running in, and the current chief of Sac and Fox Nation. How are you doing this tonight? Yeah, it's not evening anymore, it's nighttime. How are you
It's
doing?
nighttime. Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and congrats on filing.
Thank you. Um, yeah. Whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. It's interesting. You are the, let's see, how do I say this? You were the last UCO student who filed for this seat.
That's right. Hey,
Yeah.
that's right. I was the last one. I might be the last current UCO student to file for a seat before you did. I don't know if that's happened recently. I know. I think Elise Hall was a
Yeah.
current student at UCO whenever she filed for office. A decade ago now. Also, so
Yeah. Um, but yeah. But in this seat, it's just us, just you
that's
and
just
me.
us. That's right.
Yeah, I was telling someone about that. I was like, yeah, he was in he was in this seat whenever I was in high school. You were yeah, because you were elected in 2012,
Mm-hmm. That's
fall of 2012, and then 2016 your term was up. So yeah, you were in for my entire time in high
right.
school.
Yeah, and I
Um
was just barely older than you. So
yeah, you were
I
because you
was
were
20,
yeah,
21.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. Yeah. But yeah, so tell me about your time. So you grew up in Shawnee
Mm,
and you were born here, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. So tell me about your time growing up in Shawnee and tell me about high school. What year did you graduate high school? 2008?
2008. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, long it's a long time ago now. We
Yeah.
had our when we had our 10-year reunion, so we had one of the smallest classes that Shawnee High School has had. And so
Really?
we had like 100 and I think 104 graduates in our
No
class.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, my brother had like 600 in his.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
So we had a
insane.
really small class, and so a lot of us, stayed relatively close. But yeah, that time flew by. I mean, we're already, what has it been? It's been 14 years now. We're almost to our to our 20 year. So
Yeah.
we're getting closer. No, so I was born and raised in Shawnee. My dad is a police officer, still a police officer. He was at Shawnee High School for 18 years as their resource officer. He's at North Rock Creek now, and so that's really my childhood. Grew up in a police officer's home, and my mom's a teacher, and so that's those are things I was really thinking about doing, and the and so my dad spent my last 2 years of high school talking me out of being a police officer. So he wanted me to do something less political and something that made money. And so, of course, I went to school to be a teacher to make no money. And then I ran for office that's just only politics. And so it was and so I didn't do what he wanted me to do, but I did what I thought was, staying in line with the family tradition of being in public service. But, but yeah, no, I have a younger brother, Jonathan, graduated from Shawnee High School in, I believe, 2010. So he was a little bit before you got there, but yeah. So now I'm married for almost 12 years and have 4 kids. So that's my Shawnee life. Went to Grove
Cool.
because
Oh
you went
yeah.
you went to North Rock Creek, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to North Rock Creek for preschool, and then we were in Grove School District, and so we ended up going to Grove for K through 8. But that's those K8s are, I really like K8s. I think they can do. I think they can do a lot of good for the communities that they're in. It gives that one-on-one aspect, or the smaller classroom aspect, and it kind of keeps those communities closer, right? And so
yeah, because we what was it? It was like, I don't know how many. I know Grove is smaller than North Otter Creek, so I assume it probably was whenever you were there too. So we had, whenever I was in A3, we had a graduating class of 54 students.
Oh yeah, we had like 40.
Yeah.
And that was
yeah. And last year they tried, some people that I went to middle school with, they tried to organize a reunion of people who graduated from North Otter Creek. But instead of like one graduating year, it was graduated 2011, 2012, and 2013. No. 11, 12. Yeah, 11, 12, and 13 was who, and I think about 10 of us ended up showing up to it. It was at some place in Shawnee.
Yeah.
And and it's cool to see those like people 10 years later, or a little over 10 years. Well, it's 10 years now for me graduating from there. But going to North Otter Creek is its own, and same with the Grove, it's its own little community of people who all know each other. And and then most of you guys ended up going to Shawnee High School whenever you graduated, right?
Yeah, most of us went to Shawnee High School. There were a few that go to Dale or to
Meeker.
I think maybe a few went to Bethel.
Yeah,
but we've talked about doing those, the K8 reunions. That would be a lot of fun. I see those guys sometimes. I see them a lot less than I do some of the friends I made once I got to Shawnee High School. But that makes sense though.
Yeah. And now North Otter Creek has a high school, and what was it? And now they're going through their first graduating high school classes this year at North Otter Creek. Yeah.
One of my last acts as a state representative was to go up to the State Department of Education and testify on behalf of North Otter Creek so they could get approved to have that high school. That's one of the last things I did, which is pretty cool. Nice. My dad's there. My dad's there as the officer there, and then my mom is a teacher there right now. And my brother's kids, my kids did go there. We homeschool our kids now, but my brother's kids go there now. So it's kind of neat to have a role in helping make that K-12 thing happen. It's a game changer for that community, and it's growing now. They have apartment complexes going up and housing additions going up out there. People are flocking toward it because they understand what they're going to get, as far as they'll get that K8 mentality, but in a high school. And I don't know if that lasts forever, but it definitely is different than your gigantic K-12 where you've got multiple elementary schools, middle school, and then you get the high school, and they pour into each other, and then other schools pour into it. It's definitely it has that tight knit K8 feeling still, even 4 years into it.
Yeah. But I definitely wish they had the high school whenever I was there, because having to drive 30 minutes into town just to go to high school.
Yeah, that's a long trip.
Yeah.
I grew up just outside of Shawnee in where Hilltop Baptist Church is there on MacArthur. And so I'm outside of city limits east of Shawnee is where I grew up. And that was, to get to Shawnee High School, it was 15 minutes for me to get to Shawnee High School. So, I'm just right outside of city limits. That's, how much Shawnee's grown as far as, the size of the actual size area that it covers. And then population as well. It's just, it's really grown since I was born in the late 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you remember whenever Walmart was in the mall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
Walmart's still in the mall for me. That's just where it is when I think about it.
Yeah. Cause I tell people, because I substitute teach at the high school and at the middle school and at Bethel. And I tell the kids, like, yeah, Walmart used to be in the mall. And they're like, really? That's weird. Where in the mall? I'm like, where Kohl's is and Buffalo Wild Wings and a little
Yeah.
Sears outlet. It's where it used to be. And you used to be able to walk right from the Walmart, get you a basket. And, it was,
Yeah.
yeah, that was something.
Isn't that funny?
And
Yeah.
yeah. And then my dad, he told me that before it was in the mall, Walmart used to be where Atwoods is.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was well
Yeah.
before my time, though.
Oh yeah, that was before both of our times. A long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um so what specifically made you wait, what were you in anything in high school, like any sports or extracurriculars?
Sure. I did football. And then I don't think I really did anything else. I did that for 3 years, and then just I gave that up and just focused on chasing girls and trying to get some school done. I really enjoyed doing the what are those called, the college courses you can take while you're in high school,
Concurrent?
concurrent classes. And so that was a big thing when I was in the legislature. I focused on was making sure high school students could take extra concurrent classes, because now you can take more than you could when I was in high school. That was a big deal to me because I was sitting there, which I'm not to take away from being a teacher's aide. I think that's a neat experience, but I was a teacher's aide twice in the same semester. I could have been taking college courses
Yeah.
and getting school done quicker and contributing to the workforce quicker. And so
Yeah.
so I don't know, that's something I was really passionate about, but and I liked school. I'm actually about to graduate from UCO. I'm finally finishing my degree. I'll be graduating at the end of the month.
Cool. And
Or
that's
the
a degree in
beginning of May. Anyway.
yeah. And that's in
Creative writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, creative writing. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, whenever I was a senior, I was a teacher's aide. I think it was second hour, I was a teacher's aide for the government teacher at the time, Mr. Burton. And government's only a semester long, so I ended up taking it. Yeah.
Yep.
I tell people I took government 3 times because I had it my junior year because I had all my credits caught up. So they let me enroll in government the second semester of my junior year. And
So
I like to
you never had Senator Sharp, did you?
no, because he got elected my freshman year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And but yeah, that I pretty much got to take the class 3 times.
That's funny.
It's because it was funny because I took it with seniors my junior year, and the seniors, they didn't really like it, and they also didn't know much of anything, but I had always followed politics, so most of the class was kind of just review to me.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they were like, hey, can you help me out on this? And I'm like, you do, sure, I guess. But
Government is where I really got excited about running for office, learning how the process worked. And I paged my senior year of high school for Chris Steele, my predecessor, and went and just really enjoyed the atmosphere and some of the people there. And it's funny, I actually served with some of the people that were still there when I paged. So they were still there whenever I was elected. So, which was a pretty cool experience to have that, just that memory of being a page, sitting there, having no idea what was going on, and then getting elected and still having no idea what was going on, but with some of those same people.
Yeah. I was gonna see, did we have any of the same teachers from the high school? Let's see.
Who'd you have I think probably.
Who'd you have for English? We had to
So
have at least one of the same English teachers.
I had Nancy Arrington, but I think she retired before you got there.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Did you have Miss McGee?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So
Had
Miss
her.
McGee was my English teacher. She was fantastic.
Yeah, she's great.
I really enjoyed her. I can't even tell you who my remember. Was Miss Klingon still there?
She was still there, but I never had her for algebra, right?
Yeah, she about flunked me. Yeah, I thought she hated my guts, and then she ended up being a big supporter of mine. And when I ran for office, but I was just really bad at math, so I figured out. So, and it wasn't that she didn't like me at all. I was just really bad at math.
Yeah. Let's see. Did you have Bouchon for English?
I didn't, but I knew him.
Okay.
So I think he was substitute teaching.
Okay.
Whenever I was there, and then there's a handful of those that substitute taught while I was there, and then ended up teaching afterward. But I think that's kind of an entry for a lot of people into wanting to be into getting, becoming teachers, is substitute teaching. And they may have a degree that's not necessarily a teaching degree, but they go get alternative certified and come back and teach in a classroom setting. Because it takes a special person to teach high school, especially to deal with that type of student who is old enough to not want to be there and able to not be there if they want to make that bad decision not to show up. And then they don't have to act like they want to be there either. It's a really difficult situation to deal with those types of adolescents, young adults, but
especially that aspect of they don't have to be there and they can choose to not be. I have that conversation with some of the kids because occasionally some of them will say, "Oh, I'm going to drop out when I turn 15 or 16." I'm like, "Okay, well, what are you going to do?" And then they said, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Are you going to go work?" And they said, "No, I'm not going to work. Why would I do that?" I'm like, "Well, you might as well finish school. It's not like you have anything else to do."
And while you can, and you have to kind of wonder, like, what's that situation like, right? What's that situation like at home? Or what is it? What's so bad about the school they're in that they perceive to be bad anyway, or might actually be bad? That's making them think that the better decision, is to drop out and do nothing. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something behind that, and I've always thought that if you make it the atmosphere at school healthy and safe, that the students that are coming from environments that are not healthy or safe are going to want to be in school. They're going to see this as an opportunity to escape the unhealthy, unsafe environment for what it amounts to being the majority of their day and the majority of their week, majority of their year, in a safe place that's healthy, where they can better themselves and escape. And it's easy for me to see on this side of it. But the reality is that most young people don't think that way, especially if they're in that type of environment. So schools have to do a good job of expressing that.
Yeah. And you said earlier that you liked school whenever you were going. Whenever I was going to school, I guess I was okay with it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really think too much about how I felt about it. But then when I started substitute teaching on a regular basis a couple of years ago, I started to realize actually how much I liked school because of the repetition. And once you got used to certain things, it was like, okay, I like this, I expect this, that kind of thing. And some kids, I think, they won't think that now. They'll think either they don't like school or they just won't have a real opinion of school. But then after a while, they'll look back at it and think, "Oh, I actually liked it." Right. Not to the extent that they might miss it, but they'll have a positive opinion of it because
there's nothing. I mean, in the reality, like my experience, there's just 120 of us probably. I think that were even in that class to begin with. And you had some people drop out, right? And so we were such a small class, and the classes coming in under us were so large that it was you weren't getting lost. like for the most part, people were checking up on you. Of course, I had that unique experience, my dad being there every day too. And so there was a little bit of that for me, but no, I'll probably be in school or some type of school setting, for the next decade, more than likely, Lord willing. And I like the structure of school. I also like taking classes that I'm interested in. So high school, I think something high schools can probably do better. I mean, maybe just public education in general can do better is specializing education for students. I think if that were to happen, then you probably wouldn't have a lot of those kids drop out. I know Norman's about to open a school. And so I've never been a big voucher charter school person. But they're opening an aviation school, and it's a conversion school where they take a campus that's already part of the Norman Public Schools and they convert that into a charter school that focuses on one thing. Now they have other courses, like they're taking their English and they're taking their history and stuff like that, but the majority of their classes are focusing on aviation. So by the time they're out, they'll be certified through a career tech to work. Like they're going to be able to go on to OU or OSU and get their engineering degree that much quicker. And they can choose to go. They don't have to do it. So I think that's a unique opportunity that a lot of schools could take part in, especially those multi-campus schools or multi-campus districts, to give people that option. And then you can do the same thing with the Oklahoma School of Science and Mathematics. And you could do the same when you have liberal arts focused. I mean, there's all sorts of opportunities there that would make kids really enjoy education. I mean, it's nothing more exciting than going and learning about something that you think you might be doing for as long as you're able to live. And that to me would make me get up in the morning and get excited about going somewhere. But it's I think that's a mindset. I was big public school supporter in the legislature, and voted against vouchers, voted against doing away with the pension system, supported teachers, and OEA supported me, all those things. And it's just now on the other side of it where I can see some of the advantages of at least considering those conversion charter schools as an opportunity for students that may not fit that traditional classroom setting. But yeah.
Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. So what specifically made you run for state representative as opposed to other positions that you could have ran for?
This is actually a really good question. So I remember I was a senior in high school, and I wanted to run for mayor. Right. I thought this is a great place for me to start. And then I'll start looking into it, and you had to be 25. Because
Really?
in Norman, 18, I think is what it was. Muskogee elected an 18-year-old mayor. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go work my tail off. I'm going to get elected. And then I find out you have to be 25 in Shawnee to run for mayor. And so I was like, well, that's out the door. And so that was really my first step into considering running for office. The House seat opened up. And so actually I read the paper. I mean, I got the physical paper back then. And so I think Olivia and I had been married for about a year. And I opened the newspaper up that morning, and the front page is an expose on Chris Steele's final 2 years. And so I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to be waiting for 12 years until someone else terms out. So you have to at least try. Paging was a big influence on that. Just being in that environment, enjoying it, not feeling flustered by it. And then after I paged for Chris Steele, he actually went up to my dad and said, you should talk to Justin about running for office someday. I think he'd do a really good job with it. And I don't think he expected me to do it whenever he left office, but it just all kind of worked out the right way to get me there. I don't know that, it was a perfect fit all the way around for me or my family, but it was a good experience. But yeah, there were other things I looked at first. Mayor was a big one that I really wanted to do. And just the timing just didn't work out.
That's interesting. I didn't know you had to be 25 to be Mayor of Shawnee.
Yeah. So it's in fact, or any of those positions, right? And so for any of the city commissioner positions, you have to be 25.
I thought you just had to be 18 for those.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. There's a whole 7-year gap there that you can vote, but you can't run for office in those places.
Yeah. They need to change that because I don't really see a reason why it has to be 25.
Yeah, I'm sure it was done for good reason. The 21, I don't understand why it's so young for the state house.
Yeah.
They do stagger it, right? A little bit older for Senate, a little bit older for governor. President is a little bit older than that. Like in Oklahoma, you have to be 31 to run for governor. Why 31? I've got no idea. It's the number they picked, right? I don't think they have any. I don't even know what the thought process is. I'm sure there wasn't like a study they did or anything. There's like, 31-year-olds are just this much smarter that they can run for governor and you can't. I don't know. But I've always thought that, if you can vote, you ought to be able to run.
Yeah, that's how I feel about that too. Because it's no real valid reasoning behind not being able to. I've always said to people, like, people will say to me like, oh, well, your brain's not fully developed till you're 26. I'm like, okay, well, we let people do an infinite number of other things before then. Are you saying we should raise the age for everything?
I think some of those people would say yes.
Some would, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think we could have that. Society would crumble.
So you used to have to be 21 to vote.
Yeah.
In fact, funny, also embarrassing story. I was invited to Earlsboro, my first year in office, and they wanted me to give a talk on voting to their seniors. The entire time I was saying you had to be 21 to vote. Now I knew that wasn't accurate. I corrected myself towards the end and just acted like I hadn't said it right. I was like, when you turn 18, I finally got back to it. But that's just, I don't know if I just recently read, that you used to have to be 21, why that was stuck in my mind. But so I think maybe in Oklahoma, the reason that it was originally 21 to run for state house was because that's how old you had to be to vote. And I think that's why that was put into place, but which makes the most sense. But again, I think that's a little antiquated. When I was running, people would say, well, you're awful young. And I would always say, well, age is not synonymous with wisdom. Right. And so, there's a lot of people much older than me that were making a lot worse decisions than I was. But I look back on it and I think, man, it would have been really nice had I been like 45 or 50. Like it would have been. I think that there's a certain amount of life experience you have at that point that is helpful, but I don't think it made me any less effective. Right? And how old are you?
I'm 24.
Yeah. See, I don't think being 24 makes you any less effective than a 45-year-old. I think relationships 100% is all that matters when you're in that building. And so if you have the right relationships with the right people, you will be effective. whether it's good legislation or bad legislation, you can get it passed with the right relationships. And so I think, but just for me personally, I think looking back on my time there, had I been 45, I would have enjoyed it more probably. My kids would have been grown. There wouldn't have been, conflicts with certain things. Just for me, I think I look back and think maybe it would have been nice that I've been a little bit older when I went in, but I don't think it's necessary. There's a lot of young people that run, a few young people that decided not to run again recently. So the filing period was always interesting to look back and see who's decided to run and who's decided to not run again and their reasoning. But a few younger legislators decided not to run again. But
Yeah. But yeah, I don't even remember what it was I was asking at first. Oh yeah, what made you run for that? Let's see.
Yep.
So what were some of your favorite things about campaigning and being in office?
So I like campaigning. I think I like the build up to the election.
Mm-hmm.
So the anticipation, like Christmas Day.
Yes.
The anticipation of what's going to happen. It's like equal amounts of anxiety, some worry, the anticipation, the expectation of winning, or if you don't think you're going to win, like what's it going to look like? How am I setting myself up for the next thing I'm going to do? Like all those things. It's the same thing that I enjoy. And in fact, it's more fun for me now watching other people go through it, like living vicariously through friends who are running for office and not having that same level of anxiety. I still get it though. Like I remember when Matt Pinnell, I went to his watch party in his primary 4 years ago. And I remember, just like this, like, I mean, there was a chance, like he was like, a few votes away from not even making the runoff. And, he's lieutenant governor, going to win in a landslide here in a few months, more than likely. And for his second election, and then won in a landslide in his runoff. But just those few votes didn't give his opponent enough votes to win outright. And he got into a runoff and kicked her tail. And so I think all of those things really excite me. The day-to-day going out knocking doors, that can be miserable. Not necessarily because of the people, but it's just a grind.
Yeah.
It's an every, especially like you got to work still. Like I'm not independently wealthy, so if I've got to work. You got to pay the bills still. And for me, I had a lot of help. That was fortunate for me. My grandfather-in-law drove me to every door I went to for both my elections I ran in. And then my chief's race, when I ran for chief, drove me to almost every single door. So having that type of person that supports you that way. My dad knocked doors while I was at work. To have that type of support was incredible, but it's a grind, and then you never get to turn it off. The clothes you wear to Walmart change. Like it's just a strange lifestyle for 3 months, 4 months. Like for you, the next 2 months going to be or really 3 months going to be a grind, right? Oh, 2.5 months, right? Into June for you, right?
No, I don't have a primary.
No, you don't have a primary. Oh, yeah. So you got a long grind then. You're out. Yeah. So you got months, man. That's you better be out there knocking doors like crazy. And that it's going to be tiring. So you're going to have to find a balance between doing the right amount, which is there's not a right number. It's just for you. Like, is it a whole neighborhood every single day? Is it 3 neighborhoods? Is it 500 doors? Like, what is your number? What's going to get you right up to that? I'm burning out, but I'm not burnt out. Because if you burn out, like, you're not going to be effective on that next door, right? And you'll figure that out as you go. And then the fundraising. I hated the fundraising. I've fundraised for nonprofits for like my career outside of politics, and that is so much more enjoyable than raising money for yourself. Like leaps and bounds more enjoyable. There's nothing like someone telling you, no, I'm not going to write you a check because I don't like you. Right? Like it's different when they tell you they don't like Big Brothers Big Sisters, they don't like the American Cancer Society, or they don't like the Salvation Army. But when they don't vote for you, they when they won't write you a check for yourself, it's like they don't like me.
Yeah.
And so that to me was hard to maneuver and get around. But
yeah,
it's a grind.
Yeah, it's tough because I've been doing phone calls for the past couple of weeks, and calling a bunch of numbers, not getting any answers, leaving voicemails, and still not getting anything back. That's
right. That
rough.
Stinks.
Yeah.
And so here's some advice I'll give you. I hired a consultant. It didn't work out with this consultant because I couldn't raise money, but I at the beginning. And one of the things he told me was, you will be shocked at the people who don't support you. Like they'll be your former teachers, may even be a family member. Hopefully, not your mom or dad or your spouse, but but it might be a cousin or an in-law that doesn't support you, and it'll shock you. He said, but what's worth it is that there'll be all these new people that you've never knew had the same ideology as you, or the same desires as you, or believed in you, that will make up for it. And so that was a great piece of advice for me, because I did have people. I mean, I didn't have anybody in my immediate family, but I did have people that didn't write me a check, that shocked me or scoffed at the fact I was going to run. And it was just hurtful.
Yeah.
And it was shocking, but it wasn't as shocking as it would have been had that gentleman not give me that advice. Because politics it's not a safe world. It's not a safe place for emotions. It's not a safe place for people with thin skin, right? You got to have a thick exterior shell, which I've just never developed. And so that's okay. It was good because it humanized me. Because you do see a lot of people, especially nationally, right? That have developed this skin that's so thick, like a tortoise shell, and nothing gets through it, and they don't have any understanding of what a normal person goes through anymore. And so it's sad, because that's when the people you see make these decisions every single day for us, that they have no ability to empathize with the rest of the country they're representing, right?
Yeah, I never thought about that until just now, because you see, we'll name names of people, but like people insult their, a candidate's wife, and then eventually they go on and support that person for whatever.
Yep.
And to me, I'm just like, I couldn't do that. Like, I could never.
That's thick skin, right?
Yeah.
And so, here's a little insight on that situation. So I actually supported the individual whose wife was insulted, and got to spend actual time with that candidate, and that really bothered him. That really did bother him. Like, it wasn't as if he didn't think it was a big deal, but that thick political skin, that tortoise shell skin, that thick that iron exterior, it's survival, right? And so you get beat, and you have to support the one that beat you, because you got to work with them, and that's just not real life. I mean, that's part of that fantasy world that politicians get to live in, where you allow people kind of expected him to go up and Will Smith slap somebody, right?
No kidding.
and that's not what happened.
Yeah.
So it's not that that's acceptable either, but that's what you'd anticipate if someone talks about your spouse that way. But anyway, that's just an example of that, and that's part of what you give up. I think when you get in. I mean, probably as close to home as city council or school board. I mean, because it's even more personal at that level. If you're going to do it for a long time, and you don't develop thick skin, your mental health is going to be severely damaged, for sure.
Yeah. Wild stuff. So let's see. So what made you want to run to be chief of the tribe?
So that's a really good story, actually. Well, to me anyway, it's really interesting. So my dad is half Indian. He is a quarter Seminole, Oklahoma Seminole, and he's a quarter Sac and Fox. So that makes me an eighth of each. And when I was born, the Sac and Fox Nation didn't allow for eighth tribal members or eighth blood quantum kids to be put on the roll. So I was actually born not on the Sac and Fox roll, right? So I was not able to be added to the roll. So for the longest time, I didn't know I wasn't a tribal member. I just assumed I was. So, as a kid, my cousins were on the roll, and my dad, of course, is. And so we weren't raised around the tribe like around the reservation, but I grew up wanting to run for chief someday. And then, one day my dad added me. I don't even know when he did that. I'm assuming it's whenever they lowered the blood quantum, but that's not a big deal. He didn't make a big deal out of it to me and my brother. So I leave office, State House in 2016, go on to work at Big Brothers Big Sisters. Then I go to American Cancer Society. Then I go to OCAST, the Oklahoma Center for the Advancement of Science and Technology. And I get a phone call, and I get another phone call, and I get another phone call from people wanting me to run for chief of the Sac and Fox Nation. And I'm thinking, these people are out of their minds. Like, there's no way I'm going to give up this state job with these great benefits. And I'm still on the pension plan. So I've got this great, I'm the last elected official on the pension plan. And I'm not going to give that up. And I'm not going to win anyway. Like, no one knows who I am. I haven't been around the tribe. But it just kept tugging at me. So it's about a week and a half, 2 weeks out from filing, and they file in March. And my predecessor reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to run again. I think you should think about running." So this is too much. At this point, we meet up, we grab coffee. I go home, I talk to my grandfather-in-law, I talk to my dad, I talk to my wife, and we all decide, my in-laws, we all decide that it's a good idea. So I get the cashier's check. And then that day I get the cashier's check. My predecessor reaches out to me and says, "Never mind, I'm going to run again." So, well, what do you do at that point? I've already got the cashier's check. I've already made fundraising phone calls. I've already told a bunch of tribal members I'm running. And so I'm like in this dilemma, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. It's really hard to beat an incumbent in anything. So I finally, I'm praying about it. And I have a doctor's appointment in Stroud at the tribe on the last day of filing. So Olivia my wife had picked up the cashier's check. And so I have it, I bring it with me, and I'm sitting in the chair at the dock, and I just kind of talking to him about some of the health issues I'm experiencing. And he sits there and tells me, and then I tell him I'm thinking about running for chief at the same time. And he sits there and he goes, "I'm not going to work on you at all." He said, "I think we're going to pray together, and then I think you need to go file for chief." And it's not like it's a tribal member telling me this. It's just an employee of the tribe, a doctor, a contract employee of the tribe. And so actually I take that cashier's check. I go see the secretary of the tribe. I go talk to my predecessor, the current chief at the time, and say, "Hey," and I talked to her and I just explained to her Like, I'm gonna go ahead and run. If I lose, I lose. But I just know this is what I'm supposed to do. Anyway, so I ended up running against three people: the current chief, or the former chief, the second chief, and who's running against that chief, because obviously there's some major issues there when that kind of stuff happens. And then another tribal member that's really well known. And I don't think I'm going to win, but I worked my tail off. I sent 7 mail pieces. They'd never had mail done before in one of our elections. And they've never had anybody door knock before. I knocked just about every door in Shawnee and Cushing and in Stroud of tribal member doors. And I went outright. I don't even have to go to a runoff. It's just crazy how it all fell together. But it wouldn't have happened if that chief I ended up meeting hadn't called me and asked me to run. I wouldn't have ran. So it's just crazy how it all turned out. And I'm not seeking another election. And so I'll be there through the end of September of next year. So I'll have a year plus left. So September 23, assuming someone doesn't win outright in June of 23. So yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, dealing with the state of Oklahoma, which is strange being on the other side of that ordeal, because I was part of negotiating compacts in 2013, the last time they'd done tobacco compacts on the state side. But I mean, I was with the Sac and Fox, but I was on the state side at the time. So I kind of knew what to expect, and it's been nothing like that. So it's been interesting having, the vantage point of being on both sides of that. But
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what are your thoughts on the governor's treatment of the tribes over the last few years?
yeah, it's my stance hasn't really softened since the beginning of it. So originally I reached out when it started, and so I don't go to the casinos. I've never gambled before in my life. And so for me, it's never really been a protecting casino thing. It's been protecting tribal sovereignty, and our rights to conduct business on sovereign tribal land, historical reservations. And so my original stance, and still is the same thing, was I reached out to the governor's office and asked if I could speak about tribal sovereignty, and from a Republican standpoint. So there are not very many Republican tribal leaders. I'm maybe one of one right now. I'm not sure if there's another Republican tribal leader. And so as far as executive leader, chief or chairman or governor, president, and wouldn't return my call, and even reached out to his chief of staff at the time, couldn't get a call back. I finally got a text message back from the chief of staff, saying that he would set something up, and then it just got progressively worse, like the rhetoric and the some of the decisions that were being made by the executive office. And so I couldn't put myself in that position. So when he finally called me and asked to sit down with me, I was like, ship has sailed. There's no, I don't have the luxury of sitting down with you anymore. It's gotten that bad. So I remember I was on my way to Walgreens to pick up pull-ups. Actually, maybe diapers 2 years ago. And Governor Stitt called me and says, I'd really like to talk about gaming with you and the Sac and Fox Nation. And I just had to tell him I can't. I mean, I at this point, I can't do it. Had you returned my call a month ago, I wouldn't have been in a position to betray, 37 other tribal leaders, because that's what it would have looked like at that point. And of course, I'm sure, as you saw, there were 2 tribes that did end up negotiating with him and coming up with compacts that were voided out by the state Supreme Court. But I mean, we shook hands with those tribes the day before they did that to us. So I wasn't wanting to put myself in that position to look like that. And it was the right decision. It hasn't made me any friends with that staff, but I did try. And my goal still is that if there was opportunity to have a good relationship with the governor and his staff, for the benefit of the state, the benefit of the Sac and Fox Nation, the benefit of, the other 37 federally recognized tribes in the state, I would do it. Right now, I just don't think that that's something that he's interested in. We're probably my people at this point. It just makes everything more difficult, which is something you'll get to experience if you're fortunate enough to win, what that looks like, navigating the second floor of the Capitol building. Because I remember Governor Fallon wasn't any different when it came to just being, it's hard to work with that second floor. For whatever reason, there's a mentality shift between being in the legislature and being in the governor's office. And so it's never easy. You think it'd be really easy when you've got super majorities in both chambers and then you've got the governor. It's not. It might be even harder. And so I remember it was a Tuesday. We called it Black Tuesday, and Governor Fallon vetoed every bill she had on her desk, except for one, and that was my bill. And so she was upset with us for not putting something in the budget or passing a bill. It may have been a bill she wanted to pass. It was one of those two things, and she was angry. And she told us, she goes, "I'm going to veto every single bill," and she did it like. I don't know, real dramatically. Like, I'm pretty sure she didn't just I think she pretty much signed every single one and vetoed every single one over the course of a day. And so I saw one of her staff members and in the hallway, I was like, please don't let her veto this bill. Like, it's not this huge ordeal, but it's a piece of legislation that people in my community have worked on for a decade. Like, you can't veto this bill, please. It's her community. She's from the Pop County. Like, just tell her to consider that. Anyway, she didn't veto it. It was the only bill she didn't veto. But it's hard to negotiate that type of power, executive powers, with the desires of the legislature. And for whatever reason, there's a disconnect there. And it may be the fact that you have all this staff that is surrounding you and insulating you, whereas I don't have that in the legislature, right? It's you, and you probably end up sharing a legislative assistant in the House. So there's no insulation. It's just you. You're completely, you're going to be completely impacted by all the elements. There's nothing protecting you. Whereas the governor is just like in the middle of it all, and everything's surrounding him or her. And there's no real opportunity to hear the outside world. And that means you're sometimes not hearing the legislature. And in this situation, you're not hearing the leaders of tribal nations that have given billions of dollars into the economy in the state of Oklahoma. Billions and billions. Chickasaws budget is larger than the state's budget. That's not federally. The money that Chickasaw Nation makes, it puts into budgets and serves their people, not including federal dollars, is larger than what the state generates. So, wow. And that's without taxing, right? And so it's really incredible to think about it that way. The state's budget's larger altogether because they have all that federal money as well. That's 4 million people versus the 30,000 that the Chickasaws have. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, so that disconnect is frustrating from right here. But it's something that a legislator is going to understand uniquely, that the rest of the world's not going to understand, because you'll experience that disconnect. And it's easy to see and easy to understand when you're there, even when you're friends with the governor. So.
Okay. What was the bill that she didn't veto that was yours?
So Senator Sharp and I had a piece of legislation that Gordon Cooper, remember Marty Lewis? Gordon Cooper, he was a superintendent out there for a long time, and he and his staff had worked on this legislation to make tech zones, basically, where there's different levels of support in communities, and it would give you basically a rating. It wasn't a big deal, right? It was just something that they'd worked on really hard, and it was I think it was putting it into statute certain levels of support in communities and businesses that do work with career techs. Really, it was just incentivizing the relationship between private entities and the state career techs. Anyway, it was not a big deal. We could have passed it the next year also. I mean, and more than likely, had we really wanted it, we could have overridden the veto. But it was something that I'm still thankful she didn't veto it, because it makes a great story now.
Yeah.
But, and if you were there at the time, everybody was angry. Everybody was angry. I mean, it was because everybody had a bill vetoed that day. Anyone that had legislation passed had a bill vetoed that day. And we did a ton of overrides. So, which you don't usually see, right? Legislator, like the same party legislature overriding vetoes from their same party governor. And we did that multiple times while I was in office. I think almost every year we did a veto override on legislation that maybe she always had a good reason for vetoing it. And I never got to work with Governor Stitt in the legislature. I worked with Governor Fallon both terms I was in there. And overall, she was a complete joy to work with. Even all some of the way it ended wasn't beautiful, but or ideal, but never had an experience with her that wasn't pleasant, respectful, but there was still that disconnect, right? And it's just a natural thing. But yeah, so it was like, I can't remember what the actual title of the bill was, but it was like career tech work zones. But yeah,
That's cool. It's an interesting story. But yeah. Oh, so tell me about your time at UCO.
it's still going on now.
Well, when you first started.
So I was never a traditional student, right? So I drove back and forth, which is what you're doing now, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, I lived on campus the first 3 years, and the fourth year I was commuting 3 days a week, and then the pandemic happened, so I was online.
Nice.
And then been taking classes online since then. I've been on campus, but not for class in the last 2 years. But yeah.
So I was on campus going back and forth when I was, I think, 19. So I went to Seminole State first. And so and I majored in English first, and then I transitioned to English Creative Studies. And then I didn't enroll in the spring of 2012, I think. And that's when I was running for office. And so I wanted to take that semester off. And then I just never went back until last June. But no, I loved it. It was great. I dealt with a lot of anxiety back then. So I think I was engaged to be married, and school was, I was working full time. That first year I was there. And so I didn't enjoy it like I'm enjoying it now. So it's more difficult now because I'm, kids, marriage, work, but plus everything else that happens in life. But it's, I don't have the same anxieties that I had back then. So that makes it helpful. And then I also know what I want to do. And that makes it a lot easier, having a direction, knowing what you're trying to complete, why you're trying to complete it. And then being an adult, like an actual adult, where I can look the professor in the eye and they take you seriously, which was not necessarily the case when I was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
But they see a grown up with a grown up job who's going home to a wife and kids. And when they have the conversations are just different. And so I like that. I think I always thought they were talking to me that way, but looking back, I can see where, they treated me like I was an 18-year-old, which is, I get it. It's what you do.
Yeah.
But I think my experience is better now because of that. And UCO's got its issues right now. So they're working through a budget process. That's been difficult. They're having a hard time retaining people. And so I think being a student who has, balanced, a $22 billion budget as being in the legislature, and then right now, a multi-million-dollar budget at the tribal level right now. It's I can understand and appreciate the problems they're dealing with, so I'm not protesting like a lot of students are right now, but I get it. I think one of my kids just hollered really loud, but but yeah, I really enjoyed learning how to be a multifaceted student. So the way I would drive back and forth to school, and get off work. I was working midnights for a while before I go to school, and then driving all the way to school. I mean, just like dealing with all that type of stuff was hard, but I think it helped me develop into a more well-rounded student. Now, especially, like, there's no way I would have I'm making an A right now in math. So I have 2 classes right now. I have my creative writing capstone and my math course I never took. So I have to have that to graduate, and I have an A. There's no way I'd have an A in that class if I took it a decade ago. So, I mean, I think that just knowing how to balance my time, studying, being in the right mindset before I do things. I mean, it's just from, getting older.
Yeah. I definitely feel that, because I've been in school, I've been in college now. This is my 6th year. Yeah, my 6th year. And I'm not taking any classes now because of the campaign and subbing and everything.
Yeah.
But my first couple of semesters, specifically my first semester, I took 7 classes. I enrolled in 7 classes.
Oh yeah.
And that was not great. I dropped 2 and still ended up failing 1. And then and then my second semester, I think I enrolled in 4, dropped 1, and still ended up failing 1. And then my third semester, I can't remember what it was I did, but I didn't do very well that semester either.
Right.
But then the next semester, I did better. I think I enrolled in 3 classes and I didn't drop them or something like that.
Because you figured out.
Because I figured out what it was that worked for me, and it wasn't taking a whole bunch of classes. And back then I didn't work. I just lived on campus and did classes. But then what was it? I started working while going to school. What was it? 2019, late 2019, because I was living back at home and commuting. And that was also when I started substitute teaching. So I wasn't going to school every day. I was going to school every other day, working and whatnot. And it got better for me. I started taking less classes, started doing better in the classes that I was taking. And now I feel a lot better with doing that. And I tell a lot of students whenever they go to college this, like, hey, don't feel like you need to overload yourself that first couple semesters. Like, take your time and you'll be able to get through it. Don't worry about trying to keep up with everybody else or whatever it is. Just stay at your own pace, because you don't want to end up failing a bunch of classes and you're paying for them. Then you're wasting money, or having to take out more loans and then having to pay those back. Because I meet a lot of students that that's one of their biggest fears, is the money and the course load and being able to keep up. And I said, hey, you can take a few classes every semester and take one during the summer, and it'll be just fine. It'll work out better for you. But yeah, I definitely, that's something that I wish people had told me whenever I was 18, 19 years old, that I get to tell kids now. Because I remember I was subbing at a high school the other day. It was at Jim Thorpe, and they had someone from OCCC coming to talk to them. And I felt bad because I kept interrupting in the middle to like give my perspective as a student. And I mean, it was helpful information. I wasn't like talking over the person. I raised my hand so I raised my hand so I could say, hey, I have something to add. Can I add
Yeah,
something?
sure.
But like,
Yeah, that's helpful.
it was, and by the end of that, there was a kid that said that he wanted to go. And,
Yeah,
I can't help but think me talking to him about or getting to explain to the class about that probably influenced him to possibly think about going.
right.
But yeah. Um, so what kind of music do you listen to, or who your
That's right.
favorite music artists?
The other side of your of your video YouTube and podcasting is the music stuff, right?
Yeah.
Got the politics and the music. I don't listen to music.
Really? Okay.
But here, I'll give you this. So I love country music, which I'm sure is not something you talk about a lot on here.
Not
but,
really.
So I grew up listening. My dad always had 96.1 blaring in the car, and so I grew up listening to 96.1 country music. And so like Toby Keith, man, I could rock Toby Keith every day, but I just don't listen to music anymore. So I listen to podcasts. So
what podcasts do you listen to?
So true crime.
Okay.
I love true crime podcasts. True crime garage is like boom, man. It's I could listen to True Crime Garage all day long. I try not to because that can really get you in a foul mood. But the that and there's some so like I listen to like sermons and teaching series. So Ligonier is a Christian teaching ministry that I listen to their stuff almost every single day. And then I don't watch. We don't really watch a lot of TV anymore, but I like OU football a lot. So I'll listen to some OU football podcasts, and so I can catch up on it. But I don't. In fact, last year was the first time I'd gone to a game since like 2017. So that's a long time for me because I think I went to a game every year since I was in the fourth grade. And so I mean, it was a big. We took a big break from that time of stuff. But now my oldest son is 9 and he's into football like crazy. So we're going to the spring game next weekend and I'm really excited about that. But yeah, the music thing, I'm just not going to be very interesting for you because it's country music or bust for me on when I have the radio on. But and you're like metal, right?
Yeah, mostly metal and rock and rap. Yeah, but mostly metal.
I'm not going to be able to meet you anywhere on that. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I had of course, it's funny. My car, actually, the car I drive every day doesn't have a radio. So it does. It just, there's like a fuse messed up. And to my wife loves music. She would really appreciate it if I got that fixed probably. So in fact, I could probably feel her staring at me right now and telling me that she'd like to have that fixed. So I need to do that. But.
Do you, let's see. I was going to say, what about movies? You into movies at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
so
what are your favorite movies?
Oh gosh. I mean, they're old movies.
How old exactly?
Well, like 90s, 80s, 90s. So
okay, that's not that old.
So like Air Force One, favorite movie all time.
Okay.
You know stars in Air Force One?
Mm-mm. I haven't seen it before.
You've never seen Air Force One?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
So as soon as you're done with this, you're going to go pull up Air Force One and watch it. It's Harrison Ford playing the President of the United States.
Okay, I've probably heard of it. Yeah, I think I looked it up before because I was looking for movies that had to do with politics.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was one of the ones I couldn't find on any of the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
Because I just pulled it up on Wikipedia.
Well, I've got the DVD. You can borrow it whenever.
Okay.
It's one of my So when I was a kid, it was one of my favorite movies. It's Harrison Ford taking on, I can't remember who they are, Bosnians, Russian, something. I think they're Bosnians. And like, how timely is this, right? Like, and then they take over his airplane, and then Harrison Ford's got to take his airplane back. It's the best. Anyway, it's actually a really good. It's a really good movie. But no, it's probably my favorite movie. The so I like Star Wars a lot. Like, big Star Wars nerd. The not as bad as it gets, but I really do like Star Wars. I like Star Wars so much that I enjoyed the prequels. You know, hardly anybody enjoys the prequels, so it's really, I really like them. That's probably Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, that type of movie is me.
Okay.
So, you know, older movies, like most of those were made, other than the recent ones, you know, well, you were pretty young.
Yeah.
Because you were born in the late 90s, right?
Yep. 98.
Yep. So a lot of that stuff they were getting done before you were born.
Yeah, because I've seen the only Star Wars movies I've seen are the ones that have come out like in the
You haven't
last
seen
10 years. I've only seen like the 2 or 3 that have come out in the last like 10
Okay.
years or so.
Oh, my friend. Okay. So get through this election, and then actually, you know what? To cope with what you're about to go through, you're gonna have to just go ahead and watch all the Star Wars. Yeah,
Okay.
you got to get the Disney app, or get the Disney
I have Disney
Plus.
Plus. Yeah. I have Disney
Then
Plus.
you have them at your fingertips. You've got to watch them. Yeah. That's your assignment. Next time I talk to you, I want you to have knocked every door in a precinct and watched all the Star Wars movies.
Okay.
So
Okay. I'll try to fit all of that in.
yeah. Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pretty much watch anything, but my favorite are comedies.
Yeah. I like comedies too. Yeah.
Comedies and Pixar movies.
Pixar is hard to beat.
Yeah.
Big Toy Story guy.
Me too.
I like the Toy Story movies.
You like the third and fourth one though?
They're okay. Like
Okay.
So, like the fourth one is the one where like they're like on a vacation, right? On a road trip, like an RV.
That's part of it.
Yeah, like
kind of. Yeah.
She gets sold to like a used toy store, or she gets lost like in a used toy store. So I've watched it, but I've also got 4 kids, right? So it's I have a really good excuse to watch some of that stuff.
Yeah, I watched that in theaters by myself.
Yeah. Hey, I did. I went and saw when a second Toy Story came out.
The third one probably. Yeah, because that came out in 2010.
They had all 3 movies on at the theater, and so they did the first and second one. So we watched the first one, second one, and the third one premiered that night. And yes, I definitely went and did that. So I also really like movies that are based on books. So the the Southern Reach trilogy is a series of books by Jeff Vandermeer. That's it. And Natalie Portman starred in the theatrical version of the first book, and I believe it was called that's gonna bother me. I can't think of what it's called, but Annihilation. So it is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most beautiful movies ever filmed. And I mean, I don't know that I'm probably the only critic ever to think that ever, but it's amazing. It's called Annihilation. It's based on the Southern Reach trilogy. But anyway, yeah, I like those types of movies that are based on books, like science fiction-ish stuff. Planet of the Apes. You ever get into that?
I saw, let's see. I want to say I saw 2 different ones, because there's one They came out like last year, 2 years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So I saw that one, and then I saw the one that came out like 10 years ago, I think. Maybe not 10 years ago, but I think I was in high school when it came out.
Yeah, yeah. So there's three
Yeah.
recent ones that came out that are really good. I like them better than the originals. I mean, honestly, but yeah, I'm I like older movies. I don't like black and white movies though.
Yeah.
You lose me on the black and white movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because for me, I like a lot of movies from the 90s and early 2000s. That's like my
Yeah.
favorite era of time in general.
Some of
Because
the
I
best
think,
rom-coms.
yeah, I was watching, what's that one called? It's the one with Matthew McConaughey. And what was it? It came out in like '04 or something.
Failure to Launch.
No, maybe that was it. I don't know. It was like two
Yeah.
years ago whenever I watched it, but it was pretty good.
I think it's Failure to Launch. Is Terry Bradshaw in it? The football player, the old man, played football, plays his
mm,
dad.
I think so.
Yeah, it's Failure to Launch. The only reason I know that is my mom used to watch it like once a week.
Yeah. Let's see. But yeah, I like a lot of those movies from that time and
That's like
TV shows from that time too.
the golden era of rom-com is the 90s. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be 90s, early 2000s. As far as like just gold. Yeah, 90s TV, or late 90s, early 2000s TV, like Friends,
Yeah. I love
Seinfeld in the
Friends.
90s, like just brilliant TV. Like
I
it's
like
just,
How I Met Your Mother's my favorite show.
oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some friends that love that show. Um, yeah, there's just, yeah, the really 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, just the best TV
Oh yeah.
and rom-coms. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on.
Sorry about the glitch.
No, it was fine. Let's see. It's you're oh wow, so this is funny. So you are the oh wow, this has never happened before. I guess this is very apt for this show, I guess, since it's kind of an Oklahoma-based show. You're the second person I've had on who used to represent House District 26. Because I had Bob Weaver on last year or 2 years
Yeah,
ago. Or yeah, it was last year when I had him on. Yeah.
yeah, I
So
like Bob.
yeah, he's great.
Did he
So
tell you? Did he tell you about how he changed parties?
yeah, yeah, I read about
Mhm.
it before
Yeah.
he told me about
Yeah,
it
but did he
because
tell you the story though?
um
Like,
yes, but I
how
don't
did he tell you
remember it
how?
off the top of my head.
So before I get off, I gotta tell the story.
Yeah.
So the Speaker of the House at the time was the current Chancellor of Higher Education. So Glenn Johnson was Speaker of the House. Glenn Johnson had to come down to Shawnee, and there used to be, well, there still is on the corner of I-40 and on Highway 18, where it used to be a Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
So it used to be a really hopping Holiday Inn, and he met Bob Weaver's parents there, so he could break the news to them that Bob was going to change parties. It was a big deal. So it was, I mean, yeah. So he switched to Democrat. And the rest is history. But Chris, everybody just assumed Chris Steele was the first Republican elected, and it's just not in this area. And he wasn't. Actually, there was a Republican years before, back in like the 70s, 60s or 70s, that was elected to that seat too. And so, but yeah, Bob Weaver's got a cool story. But Glenn Johnson actually told me that Bob didn't. So I did. I was
Yeah,
just
because I was
wondering.
about to say, like, I don't think I've heard that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah.
But yeah, so so yeah, you're the second person to represent House District, and you're the only no. I've never had two people who have represented the same place on my show before.
Yeah.
So that's something. And then
No,
if I win, it'll be 3 people.
that's
So
right.
yeah.
The you've had Senator Sharp on after he was left office, right?
He was still technically in. It was after he lost his primary.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, man. No, I'm really grateful you had me on. It was fun. I
Yeah.
love doing. I do radio often, and I do podcasts anytime I'm asked. I just have a good time with it. And the I left all my equipment in my office though, so I'm here on a. I have like I'm using like a makeshift stand for my phone, and my computer wasn't getting good signal, and so I was like, well, we'll make it work. And then my phone died, so it's almost as if I've never done this before. But I had fun with you. It was good.
Yeah. Would you where can we find you on social media if you would like for
So
people to find you?
sure, I'm on Twitter. It's the only place I am right now, and it's just Justin underscore F underscore Wood. Justin underscore F underscore Wood on Twitter. And I don't post, I do a lot of retweeting. I don't do a lot of original tweets, but but I definitely pay attention. That's where I get my news. I mean, I don't even, because I don't watch TV, I get my news and my weather from Twitter. So that's really the only thing I utilize it for. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can, request, DM request, and we can visit I love visiting about politics, tribal issues. I love talking to candidates who are running for office and encouraging them because of how lonely it can be. Like it's just it's something I'm really I'm encouraged by people running for office and wanting to be part of the solution. And so I'm excited for you. Super encouraged by the fact that you're willing to do a YouTube channel. That's awesome. Glad you spent your time on. And then I'm so proud of you for being a substitute teacher. That's awesome. We need more people stepping up like that. In fact, I'm looking into how to get alternatively certified to be a teacher so that I can teach in the classroom some, even if that's not what my career ends up being. I'd like to be able to help in the classroom. So, you're an inspiration to me too. So I'm grateful for you being willing to do that and for the penance that you get paid to do it too. So grateful for you, and best of luck to you. And if you
Thank
need me,
you.
I'm a phone call away.
All right.